So now look at a real example. Well, realish, of an appropriation to obligation example. Now, before we get into this, I want you to see how I'm going to show the accounting entries. This is essentially a journal entry, right? But you'll see here on the left side, we have our budgetary section. These are going to be our budgetary accounts. Now we're going to have our proprietary accounts below that. We have our debits and credits noted here. And then right here, TC, that's transaction code. Now, transaction codes are used in the U.S. Standard General Ledger to group accounts together in a standard format to how you should record certain things. I always want to remind everybody that while everybody's agency is unique and special, ultimately they do get consolidated to the government-wide financial statements. So everything we do needs to be rolled up. So that's how Treasury helps us do that with transaction codes. These are those standard pairings, if you will, of GL accounts that go together to record a certain action. Payroll, buying something. And then once again, a reminder of the flow. We go from appropriation to apportionment, allotment, commitment, and obligation. All right, let's get started. Okay, we're going to start off here with our appropriation. Seen it before, right? So we have our $47 million that was given to us, but that $500K being remained open until September 30th, 2025. Remember, this is for FY24. So that $500K is 2-year money. So now let's record that appropriation. Now Congress appropriates that $500K for those 2 years. So you're going to debit your 41,190, your other appropriations realized, and then you're going to credit your 4450, your unapportioned, unexpired authority. And you're going to record in your proprietary side is your 1010, your fund balance with Treasury, and then you're crediting your 3010, your unexpended appropriations, apportions received. Appropriations received. Now this is through transaction code A104. And you might look at this and go, okay, Rob, what's going on? Well, I just want to point out to me what's interesting. We record our appropriation, right? Now we're recording our unapportioned authority. Remember, this is just Congress passed it. Like it's instantaneous, if you will. Though it's probably not going to be recorded instantaneous, but it's instantaneous. We have this appropriation, but we haven't received our apportionment schedule yet, right? No SF-132. So it's unapportioned. All right, makes sense. Now let's go to the next stage, apportionment. Oh, great. We received our apportionment, which is OMB saying, okay, you have your $500K for your 2 years, and it's for your Office of Inspector General. Easy day, right? So now we're going to record our apportionment. So here we use transaction code A116, and we're going to be then debiting our 4450, our unapportioned, unexpired authority, and we're crediting our 4510, our apportionment. See, we're moving that balance from unapportioned to apportionments, right? Okay, and you'll see here, though, there is no proprietary entry. And that's okay, and that's expected, right? Nothing's actually, no economic event has occurred in the more traditional sense, right? We didn't buy anything. It's just moving the status of budgetary authority from being appropriated to actually being apportioned. All right, the next step is allotment. On here, for our story, we're saying NASA, OIG, the agency head, they allotted the entire amount for us, right? So now you're using transaction code A120 and we're moving it from apportionments. So we're debiting apportionments and we're crediting allotments, realized resources. So we're going from 4510 to 4610. And again, no proprietary entry. Now, in this case, we're saying we have we have something we want to spend, and the purchase request is for $125,000. This is what they're budgeting. It could be anything, right? Maybe it's for this one to record a commitment. We're going to use transaction code B302, and we're going to now debit our allotments during a 4610. We're debiting it to reduce that balance, and we're moving it over to commitments 4700. By $125,000. Once again, no proprietary impact. Nothing has happened like actual economic events, right? This is just moving authority. We're now committed that $125K to spend on some funds. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Now we're going to record a current year undelivered order without an advance. This is just to say we're signed a contract. So we actually signed a contract for something for $125,000, right? So we're going to use now the transaction code B306. And this is where we're going to be debiting our 4700 our commitments, and we're crediting our 4801 our undelivered orders, obligations unpaid. And once again, nothing in our proprietary accounts because nothing has happened, right? You don't record a GL balance in commercial accounting when just a normal contract is signed, right? It's when you incur the actual expenses, which it's about to happen. So now let's say under this contract, we record a current year undelivered order with an advance of $25K. So we needed for some reason to pay $25K as an advance for this contract. So we're using transaction code B308. We're going to reduce our 4801 balance by $25,000, and we're going to move that balance over to that 4802. See, that's our prepayments, right? Now, you should see here, we actually have proprietary entries. One is our 1410, which is our advances of prepayments. And then we're reducing our 1010 balance by $25K. Now, I like to think of this. So right here is essentially a budgetary, like prepaid asset. That's what I always like to think. That's why then we reduced our cash. And remember, budgetary accounting and proprietary, again, on this kind of aspect, for us, increasing balances of credits for budgetary, but for these assets, we're reducing the balance. But so we increased our prepaid obligation and we increased our prepaid asset. It goes together, right? All right. And we did this with our transaction code B308. All right, now the next step we have is we want to record the delivery of goods or services and accrue a liability for $50K. So we received $50K's worth of goods or services, but we're not paying them yet, right? We haven't received the invoice. So here we use transaction code B402. So you'll see here we reduce our 4801 balance and we increase our 4901 balance, which is obligations unpaid, right? We've delivered orders, we've received it, we haven't paid it. Now, since we received those goods or services, we want to record our expense right here, $50K, and we want to record our payables account. Remember, we haven't paid it yet. So obligations delivered, unpaid. Makes sense. And then also now we need to record our 3107, our unexpended appropriations used, accrued, and record our 5700, expended appropriations used, accrued. And that's with B134. It's important to know, as you see here, there's two transaction codes. Not every economic event is its own transaction code. Some need multiple, and it's going to be noted in the USSGL. All right, now let's record the delivery of those prepaid goods. Remember we recorded earlier that $25K? So now we're going to reduce our 4802 balance to 0, right? They're undelivered orders, obligations prepaid. We're reducing it and we're moving it to delivered orders, obligations paid. And we use that B604. And now, since we receive the goods, right, we record that expense, 6100, and then we reduce our advances, our 1410. Now we also want to record our unexpended appropriations used dispersed and record our 47010 expended appropriations dispersed. And we use the transaction code B234 for that. Okay, now let's take our final entry in here is we want to record a paid delivered order that was previously accrued, right? So we have our budgetary accounts right here. So we reduce our 4901, right? Obligations delivered unpaid. So this is that invoice, right? We received the good, we received that service for the month. Now we got the invoice and we paid it. So then we move the balance to 4902, delivered orders, obligations paid. Now here, look, we reduce our liability, our 2110, right? We paid it off and reduce our cash, 1010. 4901. Now we're also going to record a couple more transactions with using transaction code B235. We're going to have our record our 310710, our unexpended appropriations used dispersed. We're going to record our 5700 our expended appropriations used accrued, and we're going to be recording now our 57010, our expended appropriations dispersed, and our 3107 unexpended appropriations used accrued. Now I know that was a lot, but here's some key points for that. Transactions right there. Budgetary accounts, they all start with 4. You notice that, right? Next is transaction codes. They're going to be so useful for you. They're going to help you identify which USSGLs are going to be used for specific transactions, such as recording payroll, receiving goods or services, buying a building, all of that. And the last thing is not every account event has budgetary and proprietary impacts. There are going to be some events that have budgetary only. There are going to be some that are proprietary only. And there's plenty of them that have both, as you see